A black man walked into a high-end bank in Midtown Atlanta, only to be denied his own money, humiliated, profiled, and thrown out for no reason. What should have been a simple withdrawal turned into something ugly. He slid his ID across the counter, but the teller barely looked at it before pushing it aside, her face cold and dismissive. Within minutes, security was called. He was dragged out like a criminal while white customers walked away with stacks of cash. No questions asked. What the bank didn't realize was that they had just humiliated the wrong man. A very big mistake. Because once his true identity was revealed, they would understand they had picked a fight with the one person they should have feared the most. Earlier that same morning, Nathaniel Grant had walked into Grant and Gold Banking at exactly 9 a.m. The glass doors parted smoothly as sunlight poured across the marble floors. The sound of business filled the air. Employees in sharp suits moved quickly behind counters. Customers waited in neat lines, and the soft ding of the service bell rang steadily. This was an operation he knew inside and out. After all, he had built it from the ground up. But today, he wasn't here as the CEO, Nathaniel Grant. No board meetings, no investor calls, no press. Just a man trying to make a routine withdrawal. He wanted $15,000 from his personal account. A transaction any customer should be able to do without a problem. He wasn't wearing a tailored suit or a luxury watch, just a clean button-down shirt, khaki slacks, and sneakers. To anyone watching, he looked like an ordinary man blending into the morning crowd. As he stepped further inside, Nathaniel noticed a middle-aged white man at the counter. The teller, a young blonde woman, smiled warmly at him as she counted out $20,000 in neat stacks of bills. No hesitation, no extra paperwork, no suspicion. The man tucked the cash into his briefcase and walked out the door without a second glance. Nathaniel's jaw tightened, though he forced himself to stay calm. He had seen this before, felt this before, but today in his own bank, he wasn't going to let it slide. He walked up to the counter. The teller's name tag read Aaron Carter. She didn't smile, didn't greet him. Instead, she pushed a clipboard across the counter. "Fill this out," she said flatly. Nathaniel glanced at the form, basic withdrawal paperwork. Nothing the man before him had complete. Still, he filled it out carefully, handed it back along with his ID. Aaron barely looked at it before shoving it back toward him. "We can't process this." Nathaniel frowned. "Excuse me? We don't handle large cash withdrawals like this," she said, folding her arms. His brows knit together. "I just watched that man walk out with $20,000 in cash." He pointed toward the door where the customer had left only moments ago. "You didn't hesitate for a second with him." Aaron's lips tightened. "That's different." Nathaniel leaned forward, his voice calm but firm. "How?" She avoided his eyes, not from shame, but from irritation. Her gaze flicked toward the glass office at the back. A woman stood there with arms crossed, already watching. Nathaniel followed her eyes and saw Victoria Langley, the bank manager, mid-40s, perfectly tailored suit, sharp expression. She gave Aaron the smallest nod, and that was all Aaron needed. "I told you," Aaron said, tapping the slip on the counter. "We can't process this." Nathaniel took a slow breath, steadying himself. "And I'm asking you why." Aaron tilted her head. "It's unusual. A withdrawal this large, it's suspicious." That word hung in the air. Suspicious. A word Nathaniel had heard too many times in his life. His reply was calm. "Even, you didn't seem suspicious when he did the exact same thing." For a moment, her face faltered, but she quickly covered it. "Sir, I don't make the rules." Nathaniel gave a dry chuckle. "No, but you do know how to apply them selectively." Aaron stiffened. "I need to get my manager." Without waiting for him to respond, she turned and walked briskly toward the office. Nathaniel stayed still, tapping the counter slowly with his fingers. The air in the bank shifted, subtle but undeniable. Customers shuffled uncomfortably. Tellers exchanged uneasy glances. No one spoke. No one interfered. Across the room, a white woman in her early 50s watched with hesitation. Her name tag read Lisa Prescott. She seemed to debate saying something, but stayed quiet. Nathaniel caught her eye. She gave a small, uncertain smile. He didn't return it, not out of anger at her, but because he already knew how this story usually went. People noticed. People whispered. But rarely did anyone step in. The door to the back office swung open, and Victoria Langley stepped out. Her heels clicked sharply against the tile, her face calm but unreadable. Behind her walked Aaron, chin lifted, wearing the smug look of someone who knew she now had backup. Victoria adjusted her blazer and gave Nathaniel a smooth, professional smile, the kind reserved for difficult customers. "Good morning, sir. I understand you're trying to make a large withdrawal." Nathaniel met her gaze without flinching. "I am." Her smile didn't move. "Unfortunately, we have certain security protocols in place." And just like that, the game had begun. Security protocols? Nathaniel asked, narrowing his eyes. Victoria nodded smoothly. "Yes, for high-value withdrawals. We take extra precautions to protect both our customers and our staff." Nathaniel crossed his arms. "And by precautions, you mean questioning me, but not the man who just withdrew more than I did?" Her polished smile stayed fixed, but her jaw tightened. "I can't speak to other transactions, but in this case, I need to verify the source of your funds." Nathaniel let out a sharp breath. "My paycheck, same as every other deposit." Victoria tilted her head, ignoring his answer. "Can you provide the exact amount of your last deposit?" Nathaniel scoffed. "You have my account open right in front of you. Why don't you check?" She didn't respond. Instead, she gave a subtle signal. Across the room, Ethan Reynolds, the bank security guard, straightened from where he leaned against the wall. Without hesitation, he started walking toward the counter, his heavy boots echoing. Nathaniel stood his ground. He knew this game. A black man treated like a threat in a place he was supposed to belong. "I'll ask again," Victoria said, her voice polished, professional, and cold. "Can you verify the source of these funds?" Nathaniel dragged a hand across his face. "I've banked here for years, and never once have I been treated like this. So tell me, Victoria, what exactly about me makes you think I don't belong?" The room went silent. Even Erin, the teller, shifted uneasily behind the counter. Lisa Prescott, the woman near the customer service desk, clutched her purse and looked uncomfortable. But no one spoke. Victoria didn't blink. "I'm going to have to ask you to leave." Ethan stepped up beside Nathaniel now. Nathaniel took a deep breath, then reached into his pocket. Slow and deliberate. He pulled out his phone, tapped record, and held it up. "You're refusing my withdrawal, even though I've given you my ID and account information. You allowed a white customer before me to take out more money without a problem. But now it's an issue." Victoria's jaw clenched. Ethan stiffened. "Step outside," Ethan ordered. Nathaniel didn't move. Ethan's hand clamped down on his forearm, fingers digging in hard. Before he could react, Nathaniel was yanked backward. His shoulder slammed into Ethan's chest as the guard spun him toward the door. A sharp gasp broke the silence. Someone muttered, "What the hell?" But no one stepped in. Ethan shoved harder, slamming Nathaniel's back against the glass door before forcing him outside. The cold morning air hit him like ice. Ethan stood in the doorway, arms crossed, face blank. And then the final insult. Nathaniel's ID, the very proof of his right to be there, was tossed at his feet. The plastic card clattered on the pavement. Heat burned through Nathaniel's chest, his pulse roaring in his ears. Before he could move, a shadow stepped forward. Jamal Brooks, a black man in his mid-30s with exhaustion written on his face, bent down silently. He picked up the ID with care, brushed it off, and held it out. His eyes met Nathaniel's, carrying something unspoken. "This place," Jamal muttered quietly, just loud enough for Nathaniel to hear. Marcus gestured to the bailiff, who was already pulling up records on the courtroom screen. "Interesting," Marcus murmured, "because public records show 3 separate complaints of racial profiling against you in the last 2 years alone." The room filled with whispers. Officer Hayes' fingers twitched at her sides. Marcus leaned forward slightly. "How many of those cases involved black men?" A tense silence followed. Finally, Hayes spoke, her voice tight. That has nothing to do with this case. Marcus tilted his head. Doesn't it? Hayes glanced at the prosecutor, but he was already rubbing his temples, clearly regretting ever bringing this case to trial. Marcus let the weight of the silence hang before delivering the final blow. Your Honor, it's clear I was falsely arrested and that Officer Hayes acted with bias. I move to have this case dismissed immediately. The judge didn't hesitate. Motion granted. Case dismissed. Marcus exhaled. He had won. But he wasn't done. Some victories were bigger than a single case, and Hayes was about to learn that. The gavel struck, firm and final. Hayes stood stiffly, shoulders squared, jaw tight. But Marcus saw it, the flicker in her eyes, the realization that she had walked into this courtroom expecting another easy conviction, another unchecked win. Instead, her own name was now under scrutiny. Marcus adjusted his suit jacket slowly. He wasn't one to gloat, but he wasn't going to let this moment slide. Before he could leave, the judge's voice cut through the room. Officer Hayes, before we conclude, I need to address something. Hayes snapped to attention. Yes, Your Honor. The judge removed her glasses, fixing her with a steady gaze. This court does not take allegations of misconduct lightly. Mr. Hale's case raises serious concerns. I am formally recommending an internal investigation into your past complaints. Hayes' face drained of color. Your Honor, that's unnecessary. The judge raised a hand. That's not for you to decide. She turned to the bailiff. Make sure the appropriate parties receive my recommendation. Hayes swallowed hard, her hands balling into fists. Marcus stepped forward, his voice calm but cutting. Officer Hayes, you were so sure of my guilt you didn't even check the facts. You saw me and made up your mind before I said a single word. She said nothing. Marcus continued, steady and firm. I could have lost my job, my reputation, my freedom. The only reason I fought back is because I had the knowledge and resources to do so. But what about the people who don't? Hayes opened her mouth, but no words came out. The courtroom doors swung open. A man in a dark suit walked in, a police department official, after a brief word with the bailiff. He approached the bench. The judge nodded and turned back to Hayes. Officer Hayes, you are hereby placed on administrative leave, effective immediately, pending investigation. Hayes' eyes widened. This isn't fair. Marcus let out a quiet breath. Neither was my arrest. The room went silent. Moments later, Hayes was escorted out. Her steps were slow, heavy, the weight of consequence finally pressing down. Marcus picked up his briefcase, running a hand over the smooth leather. This wasn't just about him. For once, the system had taken notice. He stepped out of the courthouse into the midday sun, breathing deeply. The air felt lighter, though he knew better. The world hadn't changed in a few hours. But maybe, just maybe, one person had been forced to see it differently. As he descended the courthouse steps, a voice called out, Mr. Hale. Marcus turned. A young officer from the precinct jogged toward him. The same one who had hesitated when Hayes handed over his wallet. The one who had sensed the truth from the start. The officer stopped, catching his breath. I just want to say what you did in there, that was something. Marcus raised an eyebrow. The officer scratched the back of his neck. I see cases like this all the time. People arrested for nothing, stuck in the system because they can't fight back. But I've never seen anyone turn around like that. Not in court. Marcus studied him for a long moment. Do you ever speak up when you see it happening? The officer's jaw tightened. It's not that easy. Marcus nodded slowly. Neither was proving my innocence. The officer dropped his gaze, shoulders sagging. He knew Marcus was right. Marcus looked back at the courthouse doors. It starts with one person saying something, doing something, not looking the other way. The officer shifted. Yeah. He hesitated, then added quietly, Hayes isn't the only one like that on the force. But not all of us are like her. Marcus gave him a long look. Then prove it. The officer nodded once, then turned and disappeared into the city streets. Marcus stood still, letting it all sink in. He had cleared his name, but the fight was bigger than him. Too many people never got their day in court. Too many lacked the knowledge, the resources, or the chance to fight back. That was what needed to change. He pulled out his phone and dialed a number. A woman's voice answered. Marcus? Everything okay? He smiled slightly. Yeah, Mom, everything's okay. She exhaled in relief. I've been praying all morning. Marcus leaned against the railing, staring out at the streets. I think I know what I want to do next. A pause. Oh, I want to start something. Maybe a legal defense fund for people who can't fight back. His mother's voice softened. That's a big undertaking, baby. He smiled. Yeah, but it's the right thing to do. She was quiet for a moment, then finally said, I think you're right. Marcus slipped the phone back into his pocket. He had walked into that courthouse as a defendant. He walked out as something else.